Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Want to be more creative? One of the most productive tools you can use to solve problems and generate great ideas is mind mapping, of course. That's why you're here today. I'm sure you're aware it enables you to capture your ideas in a unique, highly visual way. And more importantly, it's totally aligned with the way your brain works. And as we'll see, it supports a wide variety of creative problem solving techniques, which is actually quite valuable. During the next 35 to 40 minutes, I'll highlight why mind mapping software or mind mapping tools are so effective as for thinking and brainstorming. And I'll walk you through some practical and powerful ways you can use it to generate more higher value ideas. Make no mistake, this is not going to be a superficial overview of mind mapping and creativity. On the contrary, I'm going to take you much deeper. There's more going on in this space than meets the eye. Mind mapping tools actually support creativity in some really marvelous ways that you might have never expected, and we're going to explore them. Before we get started, I just want to give you a brief overview of me. Many of you know me as the author and publisher of the Mind Mapping Software blog, the world's leading source of news, reviews, advice, and training on all types of visual thinking tools, including mind mapping. By the way, as of January 1, I've rebranded it as Visual Velocity. But what you may not know is that I have an even longer history of studying and writing about creativity. That's why I'm especially excited to be presenting on this topic to you today. So let's jump right into it. First, let's explore why mind mapping tools are ideal for brainstorming. First, just a level set here. It's important to realize that the brain's a powerful associative engine. What I mean by that is when you prompt it with one word or concept, it immediately jumps into action and serves up a variety of related concepts. As an example, if I say the word red to you, your brain immediately begins to think of all sorts of things that are red, and the mind map on screen demonstrates what that could look like. A mind map, of course, makes it incredibly easy to make these word associations, and in addition, it empowers you to think in multiple directions and on multiple levels. You can branch out and explore each line of thinking in as much detail and using as many levels as required using the mind map's infinite workspace. And once you've transmuted your ideas from your mind into a more tangible form in a mind map, each topic in itself can also become a creative prompt or trigger that can inspire additional word associations, which you could also capture in your mind map. In this medium, your ideas can literally become stepping stones to additional ideas. The practice of mind mapping makes excellent use of both sides of the left and right sides of your brain. It enables you to access more of its creative powers. It's a powerful form of whole brain thinking, if you will. The left side of your brain tends to be very analytical, and it's focused on reasoning. The right side of your brain is more creative and holistic, and it favors your intuition. Mind mapping tools enable you to switch seamlessly between capturing ideas, very much a right-brained activity, and then switch to analytical left-brain thinking, grouping and organizing ideas, adding supporting information to them, and prioritizing them. There's no other type of tool that I'm aware of that supports both types of thinking so fluidly and equally. Mind mapping tools also enable you to arrange and rearrange your ideas at will. That's really powerful in the context of creativity. Why? Because a mind map displays your ideas in a skeletal format. In other words, the relationships between the ideas you've captured in your mind map are easily visible. That's not so when you're working with documents or, to a lesser extent, note-taking tools. If you see two topics that are related, you can easily move one of them adjacent to the other, position it as subtopic, or manipulate it in other ways. From a creative standpoint, this enables you to play what if with your ideas. In other words, try moving a topic to a new location within your mind map. Does it make more sense there? Does it enhance your understanding of your creative challenge? If not, move it back to its old position or use your tool's undo command to do it for you. Closely related to that is the concept of refactoring. Each time you move a topic, you place it within a new constellation of topics and ideas. Why is that important? Because you have an opportunity to think about it in a new context, and that often leads to new ideas and insights. A lot of people simply create their mind map and they think they're done. But by experimenting with the arrangement of your topics, you can actually generate some fresh ideas and insights and improve the overall quality of your mind map. Creativity experts say that regardless of the technique you use to generate ideas, there's two primary phases of the creative process: divergence and convergence. Mind mapping tools easily support both of these phases, as the infographic on your screen illustrates. Divergence, the first stage, has to do with generating a large, diverse variety of ideas. You need to think in many different directions to come up with high-value ideas. Mind mapping lets you branch out your thinking in as many directions as you want with complete freedom. You can capture many ideas, identify gaps in your information, or people whose input you need. It's really quite flexible. Convergence begins after you're done brainstorming. During this stage, your goal is to narrow down the large number of ideas you generated into just a handful of high-value ideas that you plan to implement. In mind mapping tools, that's supported by the ability to move topics and ideas around, as we've just discussed. These capabilities make mind mapping the perfect tool for supporting your creative muse and for supporting all parts of the creative process. So why are we even having a discussion about why creativity is so important and how mind mapping enables it? Well, because one common human mental tendency is to fall into the habit of rutted thinking. Our brains like to follow the same well-worn paths, in other words. One of the ways this manifests itself is when we're brainstorming. We tend to stop whenever we uncover the first idea that feels right. When that happens, most people stop brainstorming. They're done. It's time to move on to the next task in your to-do list. There's only one big problem with this approach, however. The first ideas you tend to come up with, the ones that are top of mind, tend to be lower value ideas. Here's an analogy that briefly explains what I'm talking about. In the world of mining, you must first dig through something called overburden. That's the dirt and the rock that has little or no value to uncover the deeper, rich, incredibly valuable seam of minerals beneath it. And so it is with ideas. By pushing farther into the periphery of your thinking, deeper into your mind, you're digging in the mental equivalent of a vein of pure gold. And that's where your most valuable ideas tend to hide. Mind mapping tools jumpstart your thinking in new directions. They enable you to look at your challenge from a variety of perspectives. And that, my friends, is the key to uncovering the most valuable ideas. You know, we've been talking very theoretically up to this point, but what does that mean in the real world? Well, periodically I conduct a survey of the readers of my blog to learn how they're using mind mapping tools in the real world. More importantly, I ask them multiple questions that reveal the impact it makes in their work, its real value. It's actually quite significant. So for the purposes of this presentation, I want to highlight just a few data points that are focused on mind mapping tools and specifically how they support creativity. First, users of mind mapping tools tell me they help them be 50% more creative. I think that's pretty amazing. They also report a significant increase in productivity, by the way. And almost half of survey respondents say they use their mind mapping tool for creative problem solving. But I didn't stop there. I asked my readers if it helps them to tackle larger, more complex challenges than they would otherwise avoid if they didn't have this type of tool. Almost 3/4 of them said enthusiastically, yes. In other words, a majority of them told me it helps them work at a higher level of thinking. In addition, almost half of them say it enables them to see new opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be visible to them. Finally, I asked them to play a little what-if exercise. What if your mind mapping tool was taken away from you? Or what if it never existed in the first place? Would they still be able to work at the same level as they do now with it? 62% of them said no. In other words, they believe it's an essential thinking and planning tool in their arsenal. Now that we've talked about why mind mapping tools can be a powerful amplifier for your creative thinking, let's talk about some ways in which you can put it to use to generate your own big ideas. Brainstorming in corporate settings has been studied and written about since at least the 1950s. One of the principles most creativity experts agree upon is that you need to follow a process. That might sound counterintuitive at first, placing a structure on something that is supposed to be by its nature unstructured and unpredictable, but it actually does lead to better outcomes. The 5-step process on your screen is widely accepted as a solid approach. We're going to explore each stage briefly, and I placed a big red arrow under step number 2, generating ideas. Why? Because that's the fun part everyone naturally jumps to. But as you can see, there's much more to it than that. Step 1 is problem definition. Before you start brainstorming ideas, you ought to invest some time clearly in defining your challenge. Why? Because you need to make sure you're solving the right problem, not just a symptom of it. Often we think we already know what the problem is that we're trying to solve, but many times we don't. Investing time in this step can help you focus your idea generation on solutions that can actually solve the problem. Step 2 is the fun part everyone recognizes and loves, brainstorming, idea generation. Here's a few tips to make sure this step goes well. First, don't rely on brute thinking. This is one of those habitual practices that we talked about earlier, simply capturing your top-of-mind ideas. That's certainly a good place to start. I don't mean to minimize it, but you need to keep going beyond that. You need to leap out of these habitual paths of thinking we talked about, to think more divergently and to look at the problem or challenge from different perspectives. And we'll look at some exercises to do that in just a few minutes. I want to leave you with this reminder for now. If you think the way everyone else does, you're going to come up with similar types of ideas as your peers do. There's no advantage there. What we're going after are unique ideas and insights that will help to differentiate you and your work. Step 3 of the creative process is incubation. This happens after you finish generating ideas. It could last a few hours or a few days. The idea is that you need to mentally or physically walk away from the ideas you've generated. While you do so, your subconscious mind is still working on the problem and mulling over the ideas you've generated, mixing and matching them. When you return to your list of ideas, this reflection time can often yield additional ideas, which of course you should add to your list. Step 4 of the creative problem-solving process is evaluation. Remember earlier in my presentation we talked about divergent and convergent thinking? This is the convergent part, where you put on your logical, practical glasses and consider the value of each idea. Your ultimate goal is to identify a handful of them that meet your needs. To do this, I suggest that you create a simple system to numerically evaluate each idea based on several criteria, and I've listed 4 popular ones on this slide. The key is to choose criteria that will help you quantify the value of each idea. You then assign a rating scale to each criterion, say 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. The higher the number, the greater the value it has. Finally, step 5 is the implementation or activation stage. This is where you convert your winning ideas from step 4 into action plans. You'll need to lay out tasks and timelines, decide who will accomplish each task, and what other resources might be required. At this point, it's typical project planning and management, something that mind mapping tools do very well. All right, now that you understand the creative process, let's turn our attention to some creative brainstorming techniques that you can use with Xmind. Do you remember in step 1 of the creative problem-solving process we talked about problem definition? Mind mapping tools are a great way to deconstruct a problem or challenge. That is, you literally disassemble it into the elements that make it up, placing each one on a separate map branch. This helps you to see relationships between its pieces that weren't apparent before, and that increases the odds that you will correctly identify the right problem to solve. One additional benefit of this approach is that it often reveals the seeds of an ideal solution. If you're lucky, your really big idea will come to you in an aha moment, a flash of insight, a bolt from the blue. That's what all the stories about creativity claim, and sometimes that does actually happen. When it does, it's amazing, but more often than not, you really need to work at it hard, developing lots of divergent ideas. You need to go for quantity. Don't censor yourself. Record every idea, no matter how ridiculous or outlandish it might seem. Use the power of association we talked about earlier to spider your ideas out in all directions in long chains. Literally do a mental brain dump. Don't worry initially about how your ideas are arranged on the screen, because remember, you can always organize and reorganize them into meaningful clusters later. When it comes to time to evaluate ideas, also look for opportunities to combine them, to build big ideas out of smaller ones. Also look for opportunities to generate new, fresh ideas based on the ones you've already captured in your mind map. During the last several decades, one of the most widely used and successful brainstorming techniques has been Scamper. Its name is a mnemonic for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, magnify, minify, put to other uses, eliminate, and reverse or rearrange. It forces you to look at challenges or problems from a variety of creative perspectives. In so doing, it whacks you out of this usual rutted mode of thinking we talked about and often yields some valuable creative ideas. In short, it's become popular over the years because it works. How can you use Scamper with a mind map? Simply place each of the keywords on first-level branches and then think about them one at a time in terms of the creative problem you need to solve. And now I'm going to switch to Xmind AI. I just need to switch screens here. Okay, this is a Scamper map that I created in Xmind 2023, and then I uploaded it to Xmind AI. So I'm just going to briefly show you a little bit of what's here. If I open the substitute branch, you can see all these prompts or triggers. What you do here is consider these each in turn, or just grab one randomly and ask how it applies to the challenge you're trying to solve. If it generates ideas, fantastic, add them to your map. If not, go on to the next one. There isn't really any magic here. It's just trial and error, looking for, again, word associations, triggers that are going to get you thinking about different ideas. That's the substitute branch. And then let's look at reverse. This is how you would reverse your challenge. Again, very simple. What I've done here is a lot of people have written about Scamper over the years. I just looked at all the prompts they put together and gathered them into a single map. And I think there's something like 200 prompts here. So it's a very powerful tool. Now, with any luck, I can switch quickly back to my slideshow. There we go. All right, on to the next technique. An important element of creative thinking is that many people, one important element of creative thinking that many people overlook is serendipity. The dictionary defines this as the faculty or phenomenon of finding valuable or agreeable things that you weren't seeking for, which are beneficial to you. In other words, a chance happening or stimulus or trigger that helps you generate a new idea. What you may not realize is there's some things you can do to actually court serendipity, to create conditions where it's more likely to occur. We don't really have time to dig into each of these serendipity boosters in this presentation, but instead I strongly encourage you to explore it on your own. And an excellent resource for that I highly recommend is Christian Bush's book, The Serendipity Mindset, The Art and Science of Creating Good Luck. The book's website is theserendipitymindset.com. I highly recommend it. When it comes to thinking creatively, it's easy to get stuck in a rut, as we've talked about. Our ideas tend to fall into the same predictable categories, despite our best efforts to the contrary. So how can you jumpstart your thinking in some new creative directions? One way I've come across that I really like a lot is to form your own personal board of directors. Because we're talking about creative thinking here, this isn't an actual board of directors. Rather, it's an imaginary one. And here's the beautiful part. It could be composed of any famous person or individual who's influenced you. They could be living or dead, famous or not. The key is that they need to be innovative thinkers in their areas of expertise that are relevant to your challenge. This technique is an excellent example of what's called lateral thinking, literally thinking sideways, changing your perspective to expand the variety of ideas you're able to generate. So what can you do with this imaginary group of big thinkers? It's quite simple, really. You're going to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine how they would approach your current problem or challenge. And mind mapping is the perfect way to perform this sleight of hand. Here's how it works in 3 easy steps. First, pick your personalities. In the example on your screen, I've selected 3 big thinkers: Richard Branson, the late Steve Jobs, and Albert Einstein. Second, I've outlined the characteristics of these people that I've selected for my board. So I've added these as subtopics that describe some of the key characteristics for which they're commonly known. And that helps me bridge the gap between my thinking and the ways in which these famous people have successfully solved problems. Finally, step 3 is to generate ideas based on those characteristics, which again are added as subtopics. I imagine how each person would approach the problem I'm trying to solve. I imagine myself standing before them, describing my current challenge to them as they listen intently. I then listen and take notes as they share their best thinking on how to solve it. In other words, their defining characteristics become catalysts to help me generate new ideas and insights to solve my creative challenge. I've used this brainstorming techniques numerous times, and it works wonderfully for me. There's something about changing my perspective that's really powerful. It helps me mentally get out of my own way and reveals new ideas and solutions that I probably wouldn't have discovered if I simply relied on brute think or top-of-mind idea generation. 6 thinking hats is a valuable technique for looking at your creative challenge from different perspectives. It's a great way to whack your thinking out of its rutted paths and into fresh creative territory. The name of this technique, which was developed by creativity expert Edward de Bono, refers to 6 different styles of thinking that you can employ to solve problems and identify new opportunities. Placing them in the format of a mind map encourages your brain to make associations and generate a greater number of ideas for each mindset. And having a clear and visual overview of your ideas means you are also able to spot the gaps in your thinking, and therefore the areas that need more of your attention. The white hat is all about information gathering. It's focused on known perspective that's focused on your gut instinct, feelings, and intuition. When using this hat, you can express emotions and feelings and share fears, likes, dislikes, loves, and hates. In the black hat stage, your goal is to look at potential negative impacts of your ideal solution. Why won't it work? What are the potential problems with it? What risks might it entail? What weaknesses does it have? The black hat has a cautious mindset where you play the devil's advocate. The yellow hat focuses on the benefits and values of the potential solution. What are some of its advantages and positives? Why would it potentially work or solve the problem? The yellow hat, as you might imagine, is optimistic. The green hat is creative. This is where you take the ideas you've generated in the other stages and use them as stepping stones or triggers to generate some truly creative ideas. It's an opportunity to express new concepts and new perceptions. The blue hat is focused on the thinking process itself and on objectives, goals, outcomes, and next steps. If you will, it acts as the control mechanism that ensures that the 6 thinking hats guidelines are observed. The great thing about 6 thinking hats is that it triggers your mind into action, forcing it to think differently and consider ideas outside your norm, very much like Scamper did. Combined with the associative nature of mind mapping, you'll generate an abundance of ideas to help solve your problem. One of the common misperceptions of creativity is that you always need to brainstorm new ideas. That's actually not the case. If you think about it, there's actually very few totally new to the world ideas out there. Most successful ideas, if you look more closely upon them, are built upon existing ones that have been adapted from other industries, markets, or contexts. A good preliminary first step, along with developing an accurate problem definition, is to do some research to determine how others have solved similar challenges. I'm not advocating plagiarism, far from it. The goal is to find successful solutions that have worked well in other places that you can adapt to your needs. A mind map can help you with this process by giving you a place to summarize your creative challenge, identify hunting grounds where you're likely to find applicable ideas, and to record any promising solutions you discover. As you can see from this mind map, it also gives you branches where you can summarize each potential solutions and its pros and cons. On the left side of the mind map, you could capture other relevant information, such as potential competitors, the results of any patent searches you may have conducted, with links to the original citations, and notes and ideas on how you will differentiate your solution. In other words, how you will adapt the best idea you've discovered during your research. Mind you, this is just an example. You can organize your research mind map in the way that makes the most sense to you. The point in sharing this type of mind map with you is to emphasize, excuse me, to emphasize that mind mapping can be used for a wide variety of creative tasks, not just brainstorming ideas. Of course, mind mapping isn't just for generating ideas. It's been part of the theme of this presentation. It's also a powerful tool for organizing and prioritizing them. For example, you can group promising ideas on one branch and those for future consideration on another branch of your map. You can also assign numerical or ABC values to each ideas, or use icons or symbols to prioritize them, like I've shown in this slide. Since we're on the subject of evaluating ideas, I believe it's important to give you some insights into how you can visually classify your ideas. Mind mapping tools give you many options you can use to add meaning and context to them, and we'll take a quick look at 5 of them. I won't spend any time on icons or symbols because we just covered that in the previous slide. Just know they are very powerful tools that can enhance the meaning and context of your mind maps. Topic, shape, and color can be used to differentiate your ideas in any way you choose. For example, you could give ideas you plan to implement a green background color. Those that carry a substantial amount of risk may be colored red, while those that require additional research could be colored yellow. One of the best practices of mind mapping is to keep your topic names as brief as possible to maximize your brain's ability to develop ideas and associations based on them. So what do you do if you want to capture additional information? Simple, you place it in a topic note. There, it stays hidden from view, and it's denoted by a document icon. It's out of the way, it reduces visual clutter in your mind map, but you can view it with just a single click. And I think that's like the best possible combination. In addition, all mind mapping tools support topic attachments and links, which you can use to capture supporting information, such as research documents, spreadsheets, or links to relevant websites. Finally, most mind mapping tools enable you to join topics visually using relationship lines. This is an alternative to moving ideas adjacent to each other. It's ideal if you want to show a tangential relationship between 2 ideas or concepts. As you can see, mind mapping tools like Xmind provide you with a pretty impressive tool set to organize and classify ideas so you can take faster action on them. One thing I encourage you to do with your mind mapping tool is to create an idea map. That is your own personal repository where you can capture, store, evaluate, and build your ideas. Every time you come up with an idea, capture it here. In no time at all, you'll have an incredible collection of ideas. As you can see, you can use topic colors and icons to visually classify them, as we've talked about. One reason you might do this is to remind yourself which ideas you want to implement first, or which ones require further research. I've even dedicated 3 branches of this example map to brainstorming techniques. You can make your idea map serve whatever purpose you want. Your map could focus on ideas to improve your business. If you're a blogger, you could use it to capture ideas for future blog posts. If you're planning to launch a business, your map could focus on ideas on how to bring it to life. It's really up to you. I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on the topic of AI and mind mapping. As you know, many thought leaders have been loudly proclaiming how it's revolutionized their creativity and their ability to generate content. But I must warn you, I'm not a true believer in the power of AI. I especially don't believe it's creative. Think about it. Creativity is about generating original ideas and insights, or building new ideas off of original ideas. What the large language models that power tools like ChatGPT do is collect a large portion of the internet's content into a ginormous database. It then uses algorithms to analyze it and serve up responses based on everything it's collected. In other words, it's reductive. It can't generate new ideas and insights, at least not yet. It may be coming soon. I've played around with ChatGPT and have educated myself on how to architect prompts that yield more intelligent and coherent responses, but I'm still somewhat overwhelmed by what I've experienced so far. So here's my take on the current state of AI and mind mapping. Mind you, these are only my highly subjective opinions. First, I view a mind map as a place for my thoughts, ideas, and insights. It's not necessarily a place where I want AI to dump random bits of information based on single word prompts or phrases. In other words, I guess I'm kind of a control freak. I want to control the content of my mind maps. If you could build prompts and submit them and get feedback from the AI in a separate window and then drag and drop those pieces that look most promising into the mind map, that would be ideal in my mind. The bottom line is I want to decide what gets added to my mind map. One phenomenon I've been hearing about is the result of many thousands of people publishing a mountain of AI-generated content to the web, which the AI engines are then ingesting into their databases. As a result, those databases are slowly becoming diluted and over time could become even less useful. Be interesting to see how they solve this one. Finally, I suspect that the majority of creators who are using AI are using it like an easy button. In other words, put a single word or one sentence prompt and get an entire article. That sounds really cool. I can publish content way faster that way. But like any new technology, AI is a double-edged sword. Used with care, it definitely can multiply our effectiveness in certain focused ways. But if it's used carelessly, it can help us turn out crap faster. In other words, I worry that many creators are using AI as a crutch to think for them. Now, I may sound rather negative about AI and creativity, but I do think it has several practical uses. First, it could be used as a source of random or related word prompts to help stimulate fresh ideas. And we've talked earlier about why that's important. AI could potentially be an engine for that. Next, you could present the AI with your challenge and your ideas and ask the AI engine to serve up any points of view that you may not have considered. In other words, use it as a tool to help you find new perspectives that you may be blind to. Third, present it with a detailed description of your challenge and ask the AI to show you examples of how other people in other industries or professions have solved similar problems. You may be able to adapt part of their solution or the thinking behind it. You can, of course, do that on your own using Google searches, but AI could be a way to gather this quickly, provided you've got citations to the original information. Finally, if you brainstormed a lot of ideas, you could potentially use the AI engine to look for patterns in them and to do a preliminary sorting and organization of them. And I recommend that you keep the last 2 points of this slide in mind as you experiment with AI and creativity. First, remember that its output that it produces usually shouldn't be used as is, verbatim. However, it definitely can be used as a catalyst or starting point to get your thinking in a new direction. Finally, remember that AI, at least in its present state, can't be creative. It can't bring something totally new to the world. Only you can do that. So by all means, use it as an aid to your creativity, a companion, but don't use it as a crutch or rely on it too much for out-of-the-box solutions. Your insights, experiences, and hunches are one of the kind, and they're the key to your creativity. So Xmind recently combined Xmind.works and Xmind Copilot into a new application called Xmind AI, and it enables you to create entire mind maps from a single prompt and to select a topic in your mind map and have ChatGPT add ideas to it. What makes it truly unique, however, is the fact that Xmind AI combines creativity with collaboration. Brainstorming and developing ideas with others in a mind map can be very powerful because people feed off of and can add to each other's ideas. And I believe the AI could potentially add a level of serendipity to the brainstorming process, and that's unique in the world of visual thinking tools today. Nobody else is doing that except for Xmind. So one obvious question is, why Xmind? Xmind would obviously like me to answer this, and I think it's important to tell you what I think. For 17 years, I've been reporting on and providing education on mind mapping tools, and I've gained my current reputation by being neutral and impartial, not showing favoritism toward any one visual thinking solution. So I want to assure you that I'm not here to give you a commercial for Xmind, but I will share with you several observations about the developer and its tools. First, I've always admired Xmind's ease of use. If someone's just starting out with mind mapping, it's got a low learning curve, yet it offers many features for users who want to do more. Xmind supports all the capabilities that I consider to be essential for mind mapping tools, and you can create any of the creativity maps we've talked about using Xmind. If AI is your interest, I like the direction Xmind is taking with this new technology. When you have millions of users worldwide, as Xmind does, you can't go and completely change your flagship product so that many people rely on to get work done and develop ideas. So the developers of Xmind have wisely created several separate platforms so they can experiment with new tools and capabilities and then gauge user reaction to them. With the consolidation of Xmind.works and Xmind Copilot, that's one path. They're also with ChatMind taking a more aggressive stance toward AI than competing mind mapping tools. Several other mind mapping tools have introduced simple features like create an entire map from a prompt and use AI to add new topics to a mind map based on the currently selected topic. But they haven't ventured any farther than that. Metaphorically speaking, that's just like dipping your toes in the water. I give the Xmind team a lot of credit for pushing AI-based mind mapping more aggressively and experimenting with it in new ways that can add value to visual mapping. All right, we're getting down to the end here. As a thank you for participating in today's webinar, I'm making 2 of the brainstorming tools I shared with you available as free downloads. And Crystal will share the URL on your screen in the chat so you can get to it easily. I'm also thinking about making a larger collection of Xmind creativity templates available to you. I just didn't have the time to finish them in time for this webinar. If you're interested in that collection, simply go to the blog and sign up for my weekly e-newsletter, and I'll be mentioning it there when it's available. And if you download these free templates, you'll also be notified when I launch the larger collection. And if you have any questions about these templates, you can always email me at chuck@chuckfrey.com. One other suggestion before you go, I encourage you to sign up for exclusive tips, ideas, and strategies in my weekly newsletter. And of course, you might be saying to yourself, who needs another newsletter? But there's nothing like this one in the whole world of visual thinking tools. It features 1 article from the blog per week with lots of new content, plus news and insightful articles and resources from around the web in my visual thinking digest. I hear from a lot of mind mappers that they think it's an easy way to keep up with what's going on. And it also helps them become a better mind mapper. My job is to challenge you to be a better mind mapper overall. That's part of my mission. This newsletter is the primary vehicle to make sure that happens. You can sign up on any page on the blog. Just look for that big blue box that I've circled in red on the screen, and I look forward to you joining our growing community. And that is the end of my presentation. I thank you for your time and attention today. Krista? I'm not sure how this platform works and how she will be handling the Q&A. So I'm now viewing the chat, and if you have any questions there, Crystal, there you are. I see you. All right, where is the question box? Oh, here we go. Why should we switch from pro to AI when we can use free AI platforms to generate ideas we could insert into Xmind Pro afterwards? I guess you could say that's a matter of preference. One of the things I alluded to in my presentation is that, it depends what you're trying to create. If you're trying to create ideas, the AI tool can work very well because you're just trying to create something brief. On the other hand, if you're trying to create content, one of the things that users of ChatGPT have discovered is that a simple, like 1 or 2 sentence or even a 1 paragraph prompt is not enough. ChatGPT needs quite a bit more context. So what you end up with are these lengthy prompts that mind mapping can't really support right now. I think that's probably going to be coming soon. Rather than just using a single topic as an input, maybe it could use an entire branch or an entire map as the basis of the input that it considers. So, any other questions? Trying to get back to the chat window. Could I list out by name the brainstorming frameworks mentioned in this presentation? I'm not quite sure what format you are looking for that in. Hi, Tuba. Good to see you. Okay, I can't list them in the chat right now. They will all be in the webinar recording. And in addition, the collection of templates I put together will have some other ones that, just for the sake of time, I wasn't able to cover today. But as you might imagine, if people have been developing approaches to creative problem solving for 70 years, there's a whole library of creative thinking techniques out there that can be applied, and many of them adapt very well to the mind mapping environment. Christopher, yes, you said there are many techniques, but your use of them lends credibility. The ones that I highlighted are the ones that are my favorites, and I would recommend that you try. I should mention, just as an aside, a lot of these techniques come from a book called Thinker Toys by Michael Michalko, Michalko. That is a marvelous book. It's got a very playful tone to it, and it explains kind of briefly and conversationally how the mind works, but then it gets right into it, and it's chock full of different techniques and approaches to try. It's very approachable, it's very fun, and it's a reference that I keep going back to again and again. Xmind and Obsidian, yeah, that would be an interesting connection. I've written about it on the blog. They do have a, I guess you could call it a map view. I can't remember their term for it right offhand, but basically lets you look at the connections between your notes visually and then lets you filter them in some very powerful ways. If you go to the blog and type Obsidian into the search field, you'll find my articles on it. I'm a regular user of Obsidian and a big fan of it. I just don't have enough time to make connections between ideas as much as I'd like. Oh, the book I just mentioned, I'll type it into the chat here. If I could just type right. All right, there you go. What is my website? mindmappingsoftwareblog.com. And it's in the slides at the beginning and end of the presentation as well. Where do I find the connection between Obsidian and mind mapping? There isn't a direct one right now, but Obsidian has a map view. Ah, there you go. Thank you so much, Crystal. That's very helpful. Let me see. We have a couple more questions. Will the recording be available after? Yes. I think Crystal's replying to that right now. Write that book an author. Yulia, I did put that in the chat. What about the security of my data? Okay, I see. Crystal did answer that. How would you recommend to use mind map as a collaboration tool? Great question. If you use it in a group brainstorming session, I recommend that you have someone serve as a facilitator because, again, you got to go beyond the top of mind ideas of the team and really get people to push into more divergent ideas. So these techniques come in very handy, but separately, you need to have somebody act as a scribe, someone who's very good with Xmind, who can record ideas quickly. What I like about group brainstorming with mind mapping is it creates this powerful dynamic. You contribute an idea, the scribe puts it within the mind map, and now you can see your idea in the context of many others. And what tends to happen is that it draws out the introverts. They're more encouraged to contribute, and people use the ideas that are already displayed on screen at the front of the room as stepping stones. If you're doing a virtual brainstorming session, same thing. You still get that stepping stone effect as people add ideas to it. The interesting thing about doing it virtually is if you think about a live group brainstorming session, only one person can contribute an idea at a time. In collaboration circles, that's called having the talking stick. Only one person can talk at a time. Well, in a virtual environment, everybody can contribute ideas at the same time. And it really tends to generate a lot more ideas and a high value of ideas. But you can also do it asynchronously, which means you set a time frame, say, during the next 12 hours, we want you to submit your ideas. Each person can log in separately and submit their ideas when it's most convenient to them. So very powerful. Switching back to the chat here. Watching for any further questions. Crystal, how long do you want to keep the Q&A going? It's up to you. Crystal's typing. All right, I am going to sign off here. Thank you very much for the invitation to the Xmind team, and thank you for all of you for participating. Could you point us to some demo videos? I'm trying to demo videos that will help a new user. I think that's something Xmind can answer. Thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing you on the blog. Again, if you have questions, reach out to me. On the blog, there's a contact form there as well. You can email me directly at chuck@chuckfrey.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thank you. Bye.